the big news of the day is Tyler Dunne from Bleacher Report, who I know very well, and I know had been working on this article for months. I mean, I know in January that he was working on this article, and really a guy I have a lot of respect for and knows a lot of people around the NFL, wrote an extensive article about the demise of McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers and what went on with the Green Bay Packers. It was a great article. You certainly got to check it out. But there was a lot there, and there's a lot of players and personnel, and it's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot of headline grabbers.
There is.
All right. I mean, obviously the relationship was beyond frayed.
Right.
It was just corrosive at times. But you start at the beginning of the week, right? You start with the fact that Mike McCarthy talked to ESPN and sort of got in front of this, maybe. Maybe he thought this was coming.
It seems like he knew this was coming, and it certainly did.
And he had some interesting things to say about just the firing obviously couldn't have gone worse, and it could have had a little more emotion. I have problems with a few of these things. I don't understand why fake emotion's going to change anything at this point.
Right,
it's business.
Right. Firing's getting fired, too. I don't know
just
if
the way it is.
If it's week
and don't say it's obviously the worst it could have been handled, because that means you can't Google bad firing.
Yeah,
because there have been plenty of them.
Plenty worse.
There's been a Major League Baseball manager who found out he was fired because he was on a road trip and got an email saying that his flight was changed from the airline the next day. There was a hockey coach who got left at the curb and had to hail a cab in front of his players.
Right.
There have been worse firings.
There's been worse firings.
But it gets way more interesting now because this article by Tyler Dunne comes out, and easily one of the big headline grabbers is that.
Yeah, what jumped out to you?
To me, it was the IQ thing. That this is an unnamed source in this article talking about the way Aaron Rodgers thought of Mike McCarthy as a head coach and certainly as an offensive mind.
Yeah.
And it was, he believes has one of the lowest football IQs, if not the lowest IQ of any coach he's ever had, and that ostensibly he's been bailing him out this entire time.
Well, there's a lot to unpack just right there off the bat. And, okay, you know, again, I think you have to even start before this, because I think, first of all, the root of this problem, and they hit on this in the article, is still the fact that Mike McCarthy passed over Aaron Rodgers for Alex Smith. I think that's where it does start. So I think that Rodgers has always had a chip on his shoulder from that standpoint, let alone a personal chip strictly just from Mike McCarthy and the fact that he had to sit there in the green room for 4 hours straight before he was picked. So I think that gets it off to a rough start. Now, the things about the IQ, listen, I'm never going to question a person I don't know's intelligence, but I will say this. From everything, and you've heard me say this before, hey, listen, I've been very fortunate to be around some pretty good offensive minds in my football day. You know, I was around John Gruden longer than any other quarterback John Gruden ever had. I got to be around Josh McDaniels in the Denver Broncos, and then also went to New England and got to experience Josh and Bill Belichick and all of those things added to it, let alone some good offensive minds in between, with Adam Gase being a wide receiver coach in Denver, all of those things. My point being this is I'm not going to question Mike McCarthy's IQ. I am going to question, his IQ about offensive football.
So you are going to question his IQ.
I am.
You're not going to, but then you are directly going to question.
Yes.
Okay.
When it comes to offensive football.
But you also have to say, I mean, you're talking about some elite football minds.
Yes, right.
Okay?
Sure.
It's okay to say that maybe he doesn't have an IQ, a football IQ, or an elite football mind like these guys do, but to say potentially that lowest football IQ of any coach.
I think that's harsh.
And also, now if we know that this was personal, which, let's face it, it sounds like it's very personal between these two if you read this article, what does it matter? What does it really mean? Because if you personally don't agree with someone or don't like someone, then what you have to say is not really the most objective critique of their ability at all. There's no way that you could put it out there.
You're right. You're right. No, it is not objective when it is personal and like that, certainly. But I think where it went to the next level is when you talk about the offensive side of the football. First of all, I mean, yes, I mean, as a guy who watches film, and you know I'm obsessed with it, and I even talk to people around the NFL, and I think one of the reasons you look at why Mike McCarthy didn't get hired as a head coach this year when he was kind of putting his name in the basket of a few teams, because teams looked at him and said, I question the freaking offense, period. I will question the fact that his IQ may be lower than I would have liked because he never brought in any new offensive minds on the offensive side of the ball to evaluate himself and go, you know what? things that I do are simple. We need some fresh ideas in here, or I have to get back to the drawing board and expand my offense. That's what great offensive coaches do. And I think that ultimately started the biggest disconnect, because Rodgers felt like, damn, it's on me on a weekly basis here to carry the workload or make the plays happen, not the system to deliver anything for me at times. And then I think it got compounded when we hear stories that Mike McCarthy wasn't at offensive meetings and not involved in some designing of plays and things like that, to where now I understand why.
And is getting a massage during
getting a massage,
meetings,
as we're told, right? So I understand Aaron Rodgers' frustration as long as that's concerned, being a guy going, wait, you're calling the plays on Sunday, but you weren't in the meeting on Saturday to discuss what plays and what personnel sets that we were going to call and have these formations for in big-time situations. And now it's a big-time situation on Sunday afternoon, and he gets a call from Mike McCarthy and want to go, and it sounds like he had moments where he goes, we haven't practiced that play this week. We didn't even talk about this play this week. And I understand those frustrations.
And then even worse in some ways, there are things from the article that suggest that it didn't work in practice. Why are we doing it now?
Exactly right.
So it's sort of like, hey, we've worked on this.
Sure.
It's not happening.
Right.
And this is the play call. You were late for our meeting for the podcast. Were you getting a massage during that
I was
time?
not. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
I want to make sure. I want that on the record.
I was actually still reading that article, which went on forever.
Well, because you're right, because it goes on and on.
It goes on forever.
And there are moments where, and it's not boring by any means. It's just sort of layered, and you're like, wow, and this, and that.
And we're not going to give Aaron Rodgers a total free pass here.
Well, you can't, because, let's get to Aaron Rodgers in a second, but let's go back to Mike McCarthy, because you mentioned he doesn't get jobs this year. I think there was this feeling, go ahead, fire Mike McCarthy. He'll have a head coaching job in 5 minutes.
Right.
That didn't happen. Now, he seemed to narrow it a little bit himself, but then he doesn't get the Jets job. The Browns weren't interested.
With a bunch of people that he knew personally that were there already in place, and he didn't even get really into discussion.
So is Mike McCarthy coming back to the NFL? Is he getting another head coaching job?
I think he will at some point. It only takes one guy to fall in love with you. And, as we've seen, we saw some coaches that I would argue this year in the coaching process or the coaching cycle, they got hired where I would go, they don't deserve to be NFL head coaches yet, okay? I would say that. So McCarthy, I do think, has a lot of positives about him being a head coach. It is all offensive challenges that are the issue. And I think specifically, and this to me, again, if you want to connect dots in the football world, if you want to go, okay, there's the Browns and the Jets, okay? Two young quarterbacks, right? They want them to succeed. And there was obviously something there that they saw with the Mike McCarthy offense where they said, I don't think this is going to put our quarterbacks in the position to succeed and justify a Baker Mayfield at 1 or a Sam Darnold at number 3. So, again, those are little things I look at for context clues around the NFL to go, I'm not the only one, added the fact that I also know friends in the NFL who go, man, that Green Bay offense, are you kidding me? And so that leads me always to be a little bit of an apologist to Aaron Rodgers from that standpoint. And, of course, makes me think more of him as a player sometimes because he's gotten it done to a degree at such a high level where I want to go not great talent around him always, and the system is it's kindergarten math compared to the New England Patriots who are running advanced algebra.
Well, and there's always this thought when you see someone who's as uber talented as Aaron Rodgers and they don't have the team success that you think that they should be having to say, oh, if I had the keys to that car, I'd be doing things differently and we would just be lighting this league up. Now we'll get to see because now there is a new head coach.
Yeah, right.
But this is interesting now because if you believe a lot of what's in this article from, some from unnamed sources, some not, and we knew this before, Aaron Rodgers not only talented, but he's going to have extremely strong opinions about the offense.
Yes.
He thinks it should be run a certain way.
Right.
And perhaps it should be. And they should be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.